Alrighty guys, so as promised, this is lesson number 2. We're going to be talking about creating an effective marketing plan. So in the last video, we covered how to create an effective goal, right? And now that we have that goal, we're going to work backwards to make it achievable using this marketing plan. And honestly, that's a great way to look at goals in general. Obviously, this pertains specifically to marketing. However, these are things that you can use to, set any goal in your life. So let's talk about some of the non-negotiables. I like to look at this as a 4-piece type of puzzle. The first and most important thing is actually having your goal set, right? It needs to be specific. I believe if my memory serves me correctly, in the last video, we talked about getting 100 new customers in a year using social media. So that being said, there's your goal. We're going to use a different example in this video, but just a very basic example there. The second thing that you need as a non-negotiable is any existing data you have, right? I'm going to show you where to find this data, and if you don't have it on hand or it's not just being spit out at you, how to calculate it. We're going to also talk about targeting. What platforms are best for your business specifically and your target market as far as demographics are concerned. And then the last and final things to look at are going to be the timeline in which you want to achieve your goal and the resources you'll need to do that. So let's talk about a marketing goal here. Make sure it's non-monetary based, because at the end of the day, money is a byproduct. It is not the focus. So in this example, we're going to talk about selling a $70 product to 100 new customers this quarter using specifically social media, right? So all the important things to note is a $70 product, 100 new customers, 90 days, social media. So in totality, this should be a $7,000 objective in 90 days. And we want all of these customers to come from social media. So what we're going to do here is we're going to break this down just like we did in the last video. 7,000 divided by 90, I want to say is like 77.90 a day in revenue. So we just need to sell a little more than 1 unit a day, right? So if we can do that using social media, then we'll be able to achieve this goal over the course of 1 quarter. Now, you might be wondering, okay, if it's a $70 product and it's roughly, call it 10% higher than the product, we need a couple days with more than 1 customer, right? Very simple. So how are we going to do this? We're going to look at the existing data or the key performance indicators that you might already have on hand to leverage for your business. If you don't have these KPI handy, we're going to break it down exactly how to get it right now. So the first and most important thing is existing sales. If you haven't achieved a goal like this before, so say for instance, you've only ever been able to do a max of 50 new customers this quarter for the same product, right? And you did that last quarter. And say for instance, you've only been in business 6 months, then you don't have a last year to look at as far as the trends in your sales. But you do have some data to work with here. So if you were only able to do 50 times 70, call it 3,500, well, that's not exactly a great quarter if you ask me. But what we can figure out is, all right, if you were able to do $3,500 in revenue and say you spent, call it $5,000 on marketing. Well, that's obviously in the red, no? Because 35 divided by 5,000 should be somewhere in a ballpark of a 0.7x return on marketing. That's not great, but it is not it's not abnormal for new businesses, especially whenever you have zero brand awareness. So yeah, the negative return is not great, but say for instance, your conversion rate on your website is like 0.05, which is very, very low. Ideally, you want this to at least be above a 1, because at that point, that means 1 person out of every 100 is buying whenever they come to your site. If you can increase this and say double it, then that means for the same amount of traffic, you would have made twice as much money, meaning that you would have actually been break even on your marketing spend. So there's a lot of things to focus on when actually creating a marketing plan. And at the end of the day, advertising only creates more awareness of what's available. it's not responsible for keeping your business afloat per se, right? So taking that into consideration, once you figure out your return and once you know your conversion rate, you only have to continue to improve the volume of your clicks and click-through rate because you're converting higher. You're making more money for the same amount in spend. So now that we've looked at some of those very core KPI, we're going to move on to targeting. So in this advertising for beginners course, we're focusing predominantly on Facebook, Instagram, and email more than anything, because I think in my experience, those two platforms, Meta and email, have been the most responsible for driving crazy amounts of revenue for our clients. Now, a lot of these principles will work for all these other platforms, Google, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube, whatever you want. And the reason being is they all use these same core demographics as factors for targeting. So age. Does my product cater to a specific age range? Maybe it's teenagers. Maybe it's people who are nearing retirement. Maybe it's people who have just had kids, right? All of this stuff you can figure out from doing a little bit of market research on your ideal customer. The other thing to look at that is like a little bonus, you can survey your existing customers, right? Ask them what made them want to buy. Ask them about themselves. People really value whenever companies they enjoy buying from or spending money with actively interact, because it creates a better relationship between them and you. And it will make them come back. It will reinforce positive experiences. And ultimately, it will give them something to tell their friends and family about, provided that they're in a situation that requires what you have to offer, right? So the last and final thing here to really focus on is the timeline and the resources needed, right? So remember the goal up here that we set. I want to sell my $70 product to 100 new customers this quarter using social media, right? So the simple piece is the timeline, right? This quarter, 90 days. Your goal can and should be platform specific. The reason I say this is that platforms in large part have a varying cost of customer acquisition. So Facebook and Instagram might cost you less to acquire a customer than Google or LinkedIn or TikTok, and this is just standard. So if you can make the goals platform specific, it will give you a better opportunity to be more accurate with whatever your cost related goals are, right? So say for instance, my marketing goal is over the next 6 months, I want to optimize or reduce my advertising spend and maintain or increase the return, right? Each of these different platforms is going to offer a different customer acquisition cost. It's going to cost you a different amount to get someone new into your business, right? If you just lump them all up and throw them together, it's not going to be very effective, because where you might be able to succeed on some platforms, you may fail on others. So it's very important to be as specific as you can with your goals, because like I said in the first video, marketing is a science and it follows a scientific method. And these fundamentals are the reason we're able to generate the results we do, because we continue to follow it to a T, right? That requires having very specific hypotheses, and it requires being able to see them through to the end without changing what the original hypothesis was. So be specific and have the timeline set. You also need to take into account, and this is arguably the most important part, what resources you have to make it work, or what you'll need to do in order to make it work. So like I said before, you want to be able to leverage your existing sales data if you're an existing established or long-standing business. You want to look at your customer lists and see how quickly that grew over time, so that you can understand the pace at which you've been able to acquire customers in the past prior to putting this fuel on the fire to get them faster. You want to take into account what press or public recognition you have. Any of your customers' reviews or testimonials are huge and very helpful when it comes to driving down customer acquisition cost. You want to take into account your followings, right? Right now, social credit is based off of social presence. And if you really want to be able to make a lot of money quickly, focus on investing in your brand, in your following, because these are going to be the people in large part who support you the most already, or are going to be the most willing to, given that they are already familiar with you and what you have to offer, whether that be your personal brand whether that be an e-commerce based business, whether that's your local brick and mortar or a service-based business, say you do accounting or law, whatever. Everything boils down to being the tax girl or the cake lady or this, that, the other thing, right? So work on establishing your presence online, and arguably the thing that's going to make such a world of a difference is your offers, right? What can you do to reduce the friction of getting people into your ecosystem as best as possible? If you aren't familiar with Alex Hormozy, you should be, but his book, $100 Million Offers, has really changed the game over the course of the last year, and it teaches a very important equation as far as crafting a good offer. We'll get into that in another video, but offers reduce so much friction that makes all of these goals super achievable, especially whenever you have a very specific goal and how you want to achieve it in mind. So we're going to get on to the next video here and figuring out your target audience so that you can find success faster.